Wales Rugby World Cup 2019 review. How did their campaign go? Look through some of the results, some of their key stats across the games that they played. And yeah, you guys can let me know how you thought they went. I mean, 4th place for Wales, semi-finalists. Lost out in their semi-final and lost the bronze match. I still think it's a pretty good campaign, even if it didn't end up with any kind of medal, even if it's not the World Cup they wanted, it's not that first final they wanted. I think the injuries that Wales suffered both during and before the Rugby World Cup were probably some of the worst of all the teams who were participating. So Warren Gatland, his team at World Cup time, does seem to struggle a bit on the luck front in terms of injuries. But yeah, there are fireworks going off in New Zealand at the moment for Guy Fawkes at the moment, just if you can hear that in the background. First result, win over Georgia, pretty convincing, 43 points to 14. That one they dominated run meters. They tackled well, their line-out was 100%. They had loads of clean breaks, limited Georgian opportunities, and that was overall just a pretty convincing performance. I guess the Italians will probably be thanking them a bit for that one, because it perhaps reduces that suggestion all the time about Italy not being included in the Six Nations, because if Georgia had really pushed Wales in that game, then maybe that argument would have come up a bit more. The next game was probably seen as the key one for the pool, with Australia, who were actually the top seed in the pool, even if by the time we got to the World Cup, Wales were a higher ranked team. 29 points to 25, so a pretty close game. But from what I remember of it, it's a while ago now, that Wales over the course of the game looked a better team. But again, my memory is struggling a wee bit with that one. I've had a look through the stats. Australia got more of the run meters, but they did that in pretty much all their games because of the tactics they play and a reduction on their kicking game. But Wales had only 37% territory in possession, but still managed to create not the same, but almost as many clean breaks as the Aussies did. So the Aussies had 12 and Wales had 9. So if you're looking at kind of value for your possession, Wales probably had the better of it there. They forced the Aussies to knock it on quite a lot and dominated them with more turnovers, and overall looked pretty good value winners in that one. The Fiji game was also one. Fiji absolutely needed a win after dropping that Uruguay game and their Aussie game, so I think it was only a mathematical chance. It seemed very unlikely. A lot of results would have had to go Fiji's way, but if nothing else, they needed a win over Wales, and they didn't get it done. It was 29 points to 17 in Fiji's defeat there. Fiji had more run meters again, but that probably is indicative of the kind of style of game they play. Once again, Wales didn't have the position in the territory, but they managed more clean breaks than the Fijians did, which is kind of no mean feat, given that Fiji's kind of known for its attacking play, especially with those electric backs. The breakdown work was kind of even, which is one area you might have expected Wales to perhaps get a bit more pay. Likewise, the Fiji line-out operated with a higher success percentage, but most teams Wales played, they were able to do equal or better at line-out time. So it's funny that Fiji is one of the ones that's the opposite. I suppose it's not funny because Nakarawa plays for Fiji and he's pretty bloody good. Tackling percentage for Wales was 80% in that game. Fiji was 79, so pretty even. The Uruguay game was a funny one, definitely a game of two halves. It ended up being 35-13, much changed side. Not all that convincing, but I think Uruguay proved themselves to be a fair bit better than most of us thought. Again, Wales dominated the run meters, the possession, the tackling percentage. Their lineup was 94% to Uruguay 66. So as the fireworks goes off to celebrate, remembering that game, which was a bit of a cracker in itself, yeah, it was job done. So that meant they met France in the quarterfinals. France having had their game cancelled, probably were a bit, I guess, fresher. All the teams who had the rest seemed to do better than we were, not necessarily better than they were expected, but they did well in their quarterfinals. Even though France lost that one, 19 points to 20 with a red card to Vaha Mahina. They still performed remarkably well and got pretty close to Wales in that one. And the stats for that one, they kind of reflected that as well. France got the better of the clean breaks, the better of the breakdown. Both lineouts were at 100%. Wales' defence was one of their better efforts in that game with 85% on their tackling. But yeah, I guess composure was the key for that one. Not convincing, and that had a lot of people writing Wales off. And then the next game, they do get beaten in that semi-final to South Africa, so it is no final. But I think at the end of the day, now that you've seen the way the final went, you look at Wales getting within 3 points of the World Cup champions, and you say it was still a pretty bloody good Wales effort with all the injuries they had. Like I said, I mean, every side, I don't know if every side, but most sides at least had guys drop out through injury, but I feel like Wales more than others. The South Africa game, Wales' run meters were really limited. Their territory and position was actually a time where they had a lot more. It seems like Wales wins the games when they are doing more with less, not trying to do so much with all that extra ball. So yeah, the South Africans tackled better. They had more run meters and whatnot. And then the final game against New Zealand, 40 points to 17, a bit of a disheartening one to finish on that. But again, I think it was 26 players were fit for that final game. And you've got to pick 23 of them. So yeah, it was a bit of a much changed lineup, and New Zealand went out and scored a whole bunch of points. Again, Wales had more possession territory that one, but their tackling was a bit off the ball, and their lineout was still better than the All Blacks one, but yeah, tackling percentage was 77, which is not what we expect from Wales, especially with Gatland and Short Edwards in charge. So I've had a look at the stats overall from these results to see what kind of trends we can gather from Wales. I mean, especially for the knockout stages, generally Wales have fewer run meters than their opponent. Their average over the 3 games at the end was 309 to their opponent's 458. They averaged more possession and territory, but I think when you look at some of those key games like the France one, the Fiji one, and the Australia one, actually they do better in those games when they have less. Their tackling percentage, I think, is a bit of a concern. I mean, it was 81% over those final 3 games. Maybe that last one, when it drops down to 77, kind of reduces that average down a bit. But the other 2 games were 82 against South Africa and 85 against France. All their opponents were tackling better than that. Like over those final 3 games, Wales' opponents were 89.6, almost 90%. New Zealand was 90%, South Africa was 93%, France was 86%. So in all of those key games, if you include the Fiji and Australia one, the only time Wales kind of out-tackled their opponent in terms of their success rate was against Fiji, and that was by 1%. So that's kind of a surprising one. From what I remember of that Welsh side in the Six Nations is that they will defend hell or high water and then just absolutely punish you at the end. I mean, remember that game against England. So yeah, that was a funny stat to read. I guess it's been the course of the tournament. Their lineup was really good though. Over those last 3 games, averaged 94%. They're the only side to disrupt the South African lineup. The South Africans were 100% in every game except that one against Wales where they missed one of their lineouts. So again, that's a fun little fact, but it's an encouraging one. A discouraging one is the clean breaks. Over those final 3 games, they averaged 14 clean breaks conceded and only 6.6 made. But their knock-on rates were lower than their opponents, so they generally had pretty good hands. Their work at the breakdown was not that different from their opponents, averaging 4 pilfers a game compared to their opponents' 5.6. But again, they were equal with New Zealand. They were behind South Africa, and they were behind France. So again, when I see the likes of Tipuric, I'm used to him just getting there over the ball and just competing with the likes of David Pocock. But a lot of those guys, Pocock included, didn't seem to be as effective in this World Cup as we might have expected to be. So yeah, no medal, lost to the world champs or the Rugby World Cup champs. World Champs, yeah, by 3 points. They're only one of 3 teams to score a try against South Africa, so that's got to be something going for them. Kicking was generally pretty good. Yeah, just the injuries, man. Anscombe before the tournament started. Faletau before the tournament started. Who else they lose? Navidi. Lost Corey Hill. So, yeah, it was just a thing. Bigger had his concussion issues. So did Patchell. At times, I feel like they were kind of both, yeah, pretty under the gun. So, I still think it's a Welsh campaign where if you're giving it a pass or a fail or whatever, you'd still give Wales a pass. I mean, it's not a fantastic result, but I think it's a very respectable one where they still hold their heads high for putting in a pretty good shift. Didn't disgrace themselves at all. Topped their pool. As I said, very close to the World Champs. So, yeah. I look forward to seeing what Pivac can do with Wales, but that is on the horizon. In terms of individuals, Josh Adams, I think, proved a really key strike weapon. Like I mentioned how Wales were quite far behind their opponents in terms of generating clean breaks. Josh Adams led the competition with 18. I know he played more games than some guys, but yeah, competition leader. So the next best from Wales was George North with 7. So I guess that shows maybe an over-reliance on Adams to create those opportunities. But yeah, it was impressive from him as an individual for sure. The next best over the competition only had 12. Adams had 18. So that just shows you the scale where he was at. Alwyn Jones also led the competition in tackles. So remember, he played more games than most people as well, but still he had 79 tackles in the comp. The next best was 71. The next best Welshman was Tipperick with 62. But yeah, that's my take on the Welsh campaign for the Rugby World Cup. Ultimately, Welsh fans will be disappointed they didn't get to the final. It was close. But yeah, we'll see how things go going forward. You guys let me know your thoughts on the Welsh campaign. Where did you think it went right? Any areas you thought it didn't quite go so well? And yeah, I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.